The movement I want to talk about is the United Farm Workers Movement. It started in 1951 when an arrangement was made with Mexico and the United States, which allowed farmers in the United States to hire workers from Mexico. It was called the Bracero Program, which was made around World War II but continued to after. Within 15 years, 50,000 workers were protected by union contracts. That's because they were in the Bracero Program. But Public Law 78 stated no imported worker replaced any of the domestic workers, even though that was exactly what they were doing. While that's good and all that they were getting jobs, they were working for extremely low pay and they had large families to feed. The funny thing is that they were willing to do the job the white people didn't want to do, but they were not paid fairly, on an average only 90 cents an hour. Some even being sent back to Mexico after their service was no longer needed, so to speak. With all these unfortunate events taking place, there was a man willing to help. His name was Ernesto Galarza, an organizer who made a national farm labor union and focused efforts on California farm workers. One farm worker specifically realized that somebody was trying to help, and his name was Cesar Chavez. He later came to lead the farm workers and gained allies with churches, other unions, and in the near future he would lead the organization known as the NFWA, or the National Farm Workers Association, which was later changed into National Farm Workers of America, which fought for a lot of noble causes. All they wanted was fair pay and treatment by the landowners who hire them. The resistance itself, however, was not violent. It was actually very civil. There were boycotts, strikes, pickets, you name it, they were out there doing it, and they were getting lots of attention from officials and other members of the government, including JFK, who actually supported the cause they were fighting for. And just like Martin Luther King, who also sought equality, he was assassinated. It's really sad to think that no matter how civil or peaceful people try to be, somebody always tries to bring violence into it, which is not how Cesar Chavez wanted it to be either. Police eventually also used unnecessary force to deal with all the pickets and protests that people were having, even though people on the other side of the argument, trying to send people back to Mexico and didn't care about fair pay or fair treatment for the migrant workers, met with no force or even any kind of no from the law enforcement. The judgment from the law side seemed really biased and one-sided, but even with the law against them, they still managed to get some rights for the migrant workers and higher wages. Although somebody did die and Cesar Chavez did get thrown in jail for a little bit, but he was later released and still tried marching on for more rights and equality. Sadly, he could not go on forever and later died. But at the end of the day, I think we still won. We may not be exactly where he wanted us to be, but they did accomplish a lot for the migrant farm workers and farm workers in general. This cause especially means a lot to me because I actually have family who came over and worked in the fields. My own mom and auntie and my grandpa, they all worked in farms for low wages. They mostly tried just to go with the flow and later joined the movement, not really knowing until they were in a couple marches, but hey, they still joined. My great-grandfather even marched with Chavez himself, and we still own one of those flags. But enough about flags and marches. The lesson of the story is that when people don't think something is right or fair or just, there's a resistance that fights for what the people thinks is right. And as long as those people have the will to move forward and go through with it, they can achieve anything.